cartoons from present in the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What a Cartoon, recorded live in never past bedtime land. I'm your host, implausibly naive pubescent boy, Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever. Who is here with me today?
Somersault jump. It's Henry Gilbert.
And today's episode is the Rick and Morty episode, Total Rickall.
And that's the way the news goes.
And yes, we're doing the ultimate show for brilliant introverts who are way smarter than everyone else, Rick and Morty, the Adult Swim hit that I think we had to cover this in our first year of What a Cartoon, and we're finally getting it in here. Rick and Morty time.
It's just
100 years.
under the wire. 100 years, Rick and Morty. 100 years. 100. No, yeah, I'm glad we are getting to Rick and Morty as well. And this was all, we would have gotten to it anyway, but this one and this episode is a pick of one of our top patrons, Justin Allen. They had been wanting us to do a Rick and Morty episode among many other ones, and so we are finally getting to it. And I think we did pick the best episode of the series, too.
I think so. So yeah, so far in the series, it premiered on December 2nd, 2013. At present, there are 31 episodes with 70 more on the way.
70.
Over an unspecified amount of seasons.
Yes, yeah, but they are working hard on it now as it goes. Rick and Morty, this is such a difficult one to do because for the first two seasons, I just loved Rick and Morty. And then a turn came with like the fandom that then made me embarrassed to like Rick and Morty, and I kind of distanced myself away from it, even when it's a very funny show.
Yeah, even by Dan Harmon's own admission, the fandom can be pretty bad for Rick and Morty, and that's why, as part of my intro, I told you this was the smart show for introverts and brilliant people like me.
Oh God, I hate it. There was a very real meme that was getting shared that when I think of bad Rick and Morty fans, I think of this. It's saying like Republicans think this and Democrats think this. I can prove via mathematical equation why they're both wrong. And it's a picture of Rick screaming stuff.
Yeah, just like when people post a picture of the Heath Ledger Joker with, smart quotes on it. Like, no, he's crazy. You don't trust this guy.
This is a bad person.
Or like Willy Wonka.
That's a problem when you have a show like Heath Ledger's Joker or like Rick Sanchez. That it's a tough thing when you have a show about a very charismatic bad person who becomes an aspirational figure. And also, though, as time went on, I started to wonder, like, okay, how much does the show and the people making the show agree with Rick, and how much does it think Rick is a bad person?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's sometimes in some specific episodes really hard to tell.
Yeah, I think season 3 really started looking at Rick as, this person should not be loved by you, although we still want to make him very entertaining. I think season 3 was the real reaction to the fan reaction from seasons 1 and 2.
Yeah, I think
from my estimation. But just to let you guys know, if you've never heard of Rick and Morty, broadly, it sort of, in some terms, is a parody of Back to the Future in the terms of the main characters, where Morty is Marty McFly and Rick is Doc Brown. Mm-hmm. And that's basically where the show starts. And I think the fact that those characters are so based on existing movie characters is never really mentioned or overlooked.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the spaceship is the DeLorean.
Yeah.
And it all kind of grows from there. Like, it's just started with those two characters, and then you build out this whole family dynamic from there and have wacky adventures that then... Even then, by season 2, like this episode is so postmodern.
Yeah,
it is not even interested in their wacky adventures anymore. Like, well, we had a few wacky adventures the first season. Now it's about commenting on the wacky adventures and how we kind of all hate each other too.
So I watched the show from the beginning, and I think what really won me over was, number one, big fan of Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon. I was going to be there no matter what. But in episode 6 of the first season, the resolution to that episode is, so the episode is about a love potion.
Yes.
And, Morty uses a love potion to get a woman to fall in love with him, but actually it infects the entire school and later the population of the world, they all turn into horrible insect creatures. So to solve this problem, Rick and Morty just leave that world and go to another world where they're about to die so they can take their place. And they have to bury their dead bodies and live in a world where they never existed before, but it's identical to the world they came from. And that was the resolution of that story. And that's what won me over, that they were willing to take that big a risk. Unfortunately, I don't think they can ever do anything that big again.
At the end of that episode, Rick says, like, we can only do this like 2-3 times tops.
Yeah.
Like,
but that is what really won me over. I was on board. I was like, oh, this is sort of like a darker Futurama, like a less Harvard-y, darker Futurama. But then the fact that they were able to do that with the story and not even care about, oh, you just threw away an entire world. That was really cool.
And then the next episode is also about that.
Yes, that's right.
The next episode, which is Interdimensional Cable, which is all silly goof-em-ups, also ends with him saying, like, well, you're not even really my sister. I buried my corpse outside.
That's right.
And now let's be sad together. The show takes interesting emotional turns, and that was, I mean, yeah, I was like you too, Bob. I was on board from day one because this is just how it is as older fans now, that we're usually the fans of somebody before they get their show. And so then we're just excited, like, wow, the person I like finally has their own show.
The podcaster I like finally has his own show. And that podcaster is Justin Roiland. Of course, he's more than just a podcaster. But that's really how I know him originally. So Justin Roiland is sort of the chaotic heart of Rick and Morty. The chaotic spirit of Rick and Morty. He's the voice of Rick and Morty. So a brief history of Justin Roiland. He moved to LA in 2004 to join the Channel 101 Creative Collective, and that was started by Dan Harmon and Rob Schraub. And Channel 101 is basically just a comedic organization group or something like that. How would you define it?
A collective of people. Well, so it's like, as YouTube was beginning, but before YouTube sketch comedy really came into its own, there were a lot of young, hungry writers who lived and mostly white men in their 20s, who also weren't getting every job they wanted, but they had an excess of free time and enough technology to film something on a VHS camera or, a digital camera. And so they would all just goof around and make monthly videos. And it was really Dan Harmon's project, Channel 101, along with Rob Schraub, this pair of writer-performers, to then just do these dumb sketches with each other every month and have a contest with it. And it was tons of fun to watch, like it was early. All the internet comedy that we know today, ton of it spun out of this. Derek Comedy, Lonely Island, all this stuff came straight from Channel 101 and were groomed by Dan Harmon in a way.
And I think the Channel 101 system was people voted on which sketches they liked.
Yes.
Did you have to be at the event, or could you do this online?
Yeah, you could do it online too. They were ahead of their curve on that as well. Jack Black was a big early fan of it too. I voted online for it, and the fun of it too was people would make something that was a one episode idea. All you had was one episode, and then you'd win and you'd be like, I have to think of a second episode.
So if your sketch won, you'd have to make another one of that same premise, of the same type. And Justin Roiland sort of rose to prominence within Channel 101 for making animated shorts with a few other people.
Nobody else was doing animation on there. These were very rudimentary Flash animation, 5-minute things produced in a month by a small number of young guys.
They were
to be expected.
I would call them Newgroundsy looking things.
Oh yeah,
they're very much of that attitude and of that era. And one of his most famous things that I think surfaced out of Channel 101 in a big way was House of Cosby's. And now that has a whole different flavor to it, but the idea was,
it was a different time.
It's this weird sci-fi take on, this lovable TV dad, where this guy was obsessed with Bill Cosby and he cloned a bunch of Cosbys who live with him and have very singular characteristics. And it's just an excuse to have a bunch of Bill Cosby impressions in one show.
Yeah, though, I mean, you can see the spirit of Rick and Morty in that too, in that it is like this sitcom idea that then gets exploded by like a heartless, emotionless approach to science that then just destroys what even humanity means, and you just get comedy out of that. And yes, also the classic Cosby impressions, which you just can't even do anymore.
Yeah.
You can, but it just means something very different.
I love Bill Cosby impressions so much. They're just so funny.
I miss Bill Cosby Bukowski, the character invented by John Daly.
But real Cosby ended up being much grosser than Bill Cosby Bukowski.
I know his stories were not as disgusting as the actual things Bill Cosby was doing. That's what ruined. Again, there's no more satire anymore. Like reality's worse than satire.
Yeah.
Kevin Spacey made his own video, fan fiction, the day after he is arraigned for sexual abuse. Like
Called Let Me Be Frank
Yeah.
as the character.
He's like, you didn't see my body. It's like, fuck you. How fucking dare you? Anyway,
Kevin Spacey, Bill Cosby, Kevin Spacey, real good guys. But yeah, House of Cosby's, it could have went on longer on the internet, but it was actually cease and desisted out of existence by Bill Cosby. Imagine a cartoon being what makes Bill Cosby look bad and not, multiple sexual assaults.
Oh, God.
But he's in jail. Bill Cosby's in jail now.
Thank God.
Good job, everybody. So after that, Justin Roiland went on to work on the Channel 101 TV show, Acceptable.tv, which aired on VH1 for 8 glorious episodes.
Yeah, boy, it didn't have a chance. I don't know about you, Bob, but I was watching it live when it aired because they had been teasing, Harmon had been teasing a Channel 101, the TV show, for such a long time. Jack Black was super behind it. He was using all his clout he could to get people to pay attention to it. And they released like these actually very helpful videos on how to make your own comedy sketches at home.
Yeah.
That they were just released for free. And they're like, if you want to know how to film your dumb comedy sketch and how to write it, it's very helpful on an elementary level. I think it taught me an important thing about you just have to fucking finish your first draft. Don't be precious about it. Like,
then
just
hack
get
it apart.
done.
Yeah. But yeah, people like, I believe Jen Kirkman was part of that too, and other people that would later be on Rick and Morty, I think. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously Dan Harmon.
Yeah, a ton of folks who would continue to work with them. And on that show, Justin Roiland did animation as well, which on a fucking weekly schedule, which is basically impossible.
And he was a sketch performer too.
Yes, he was a sketch performer
Yeah.
too.
I'm putting all these things out like, I guess he did this because you can't really watch this anywhere now. It's not really available anywhere. Is it even digitally available?
I mean, somebody. So his Mr. Sprinkle shorts.
Yeah.
Those live online, but the most of the rest of it has not been saved.
I thought so.
And or it's not as readily available. That's for sure. And actually, I remember the first time I saw the man known as Justin Roiland and fell in love with him in Channel 101. It was on Yacht Rock. In the second episode of Yacht Rock, one character dies, and then a young Christopher Cross is there, and he's told to sing his song, and it's Justin Roiland like, hello. It's just him being himself.
Doing his Justin Roiland style delivery.
Yeah, and he was in so many of them, and then you just see Justin Roiland being Justin Roiland. It's great. Like Sarah Silverman fell in love with him. All these people loved him. He was also, like a reason we're so in touch with him, I think, or we could identify with him so much, is because he is our age and a fucking comedy nerd. His dad took him to Mr. Show tapings. Like, he was there.
So yeah, there was a lot of heat behind this Justin Roiland kid, and he got a Fox development deal, and he produced 3 pilots for Fox. And one of them, I believe it was called Relative Insanity. That's the one he worked on with Tom Gamble and Max Pross. Perhaps he worked on them with them on other projects too. Yeah, one was called Relative Insanity. One was called, I believe, Little Dipper. But they were all a little too Justin Roiland-y for Fox. And this was before he was working with Dan Harmon on anything. So, like, he got comedy writers his parents' age to sort of tone him down a little bit. Because if you watch Rick and Morty, like, the most vulgar, shock humor, absurdism is definitely Justin Roiland. And that's pretty much all he wants to do.
Well, and he's just like screaming into the void type guy, which is it is a very appealing thing about him. And and you watch that Relative Insanity thing, it also, like Rick and Morty, is dealing with humorous ways to deal with corrosive family relationships.
That element very much found itself in Rick and Morty too. Although I'm sure Dan Harmon helped exaggerate it a little more too.
Yes, yeah.
But where I really knew him first from was from a podcast called the Grandma's Virginity Podcast.
Yeah.
So there you go, shock humor right there from Justin Roiland. It is a crazy, filthy, disgusting, short-lived podcast that sort of just burned itself out. But it is Justin Roiland and Ryan Ridley, a writer for Rick and Morty, and Jackie Buscarino, a producer for Cartoon Network, all at the lowest points in their lives and careers, just torturing each other, screaming at each other, and doing these amazing comedy bits. It's all still online. It is sort of like Rick and Morty begins, almost.
Yeah, you get a lot of, I mean, Justin Roiland's always Justin Roiland. This is why his friends who work on shows like Gravity Falls and Adventure Time just hire him to be like, can you just scream? This is you screaming. Like, he's always that guy. And so, yeah, when I think I came to Grandma's Virginity, I knew Justin Roiland, but it was Dan Harmon being on it for an episode. I think that's when I jumped on.
Yeah, he was on really, really early too.
And so, yeah, just hearing it is a disgusting show, and at times I really feel for Buscarino that she's being like pushed into shit she does not want to talk about by these two disgusting guys.
And she often just leaves the show.
Yes, yeah. But I like just just Roiland riffing is so funny. His pigs is people stuff. Pigs are people.
Yeah.
His
all the characters, which are very much like characters in this episode, like Toppy the Topic, and then Mario shows up. Yeah,
it's so many perfect. See, they're so great to listen to. The show is disgusting, and I can see why. Also, Jackie Buscarino, like she got hired to be. She also was a voice on Adventure Time, and I believe since 2013 she's been a producer, the line producer on Steven Universe. So pretty much she's the keeping people on schedule thing, which she was always the responsible one on Grandma's Virginity. So I'm not surprised.
She was the mom.
I just loved her and Ryan always giving Justin shit of like, you have so many things, stop buying stuff.
They recorded like in his giant garage/toy chest.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, really funny, really interesting. Again, I'm sure some of the humor is not aged very well.
It's a disgusting show.
Like, if any of that show got out, they could all get fired from TV forever, basically.
Oh no, we're giving people a recipe to get
don't
Justin
do
Roiland
that.
fired.
Number one, don't do that. But it's also, if you're okay with some shock humor, it's really great. And it's just the same kind of thing that Rick and Morty would eventually become.
It's proto Rick and Morty. When you hear Ryan Ridley also get into character voices, like that was, I think, another thing that really got me in the early episodes of Rick and Morty, like in the Meeseeks episode, and you just hear the Ryan Ridley voice.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, I'm really into this now.
It's great that they let him be a voice actor because he's got a funny voice too. Yes. Just his natural speaking voice is funny. Sorry, Ryan Ridley. So after that, Roiland went on to work on a series called Fish Hooks for Disney, which sort of looked like SpongeBob SquarePants. I'm sure it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
He voiced Oscar, which was one of his first major voice roles, and he also wrote some stories for Fish Hooks. So that was him really getting into legit TV animation.
I think that's when he first worked with Alex Hirsch, the creator of Gravity Falls, too.
Yeah, I think so.
Which that would lead to some good things for both of them. And I should watch this Fish Hook show. It's a lot like, so it's a similar blind spot for me that Flapjack was. It was just another of these shows from that era that everybody who made the cartoons that came after it worked on it, but I love, but I just didn't watch their first show. I should check out this.
So
Fish
Hirsch
show.
was a Fish Hooks guy then.
Yes,
I had no idea. Interesting. So the year is 2012. Dan Harmon was just fired after the third season of Community from NBC, and he wants to work with Justin Roiland because Justin cannot get a pilot made or a pilot sold. So Dan chooses these recurring shorts that Justin made to develop a series from. And when you have seen these original shorts, you're wondering why, out of all of Justin Roiland's ideas, did this become Rick and Morty? Well, Rick and Morty would be a much different series than these shorts. But
why start here?
When I heard that this was being made into a TV series, I'm like, well, where do you go? How could this be a TV show? So here's a clip of the real animated adventures of Doc and Marty, which is even more of an explicit Back to the Future parody.
All right, Doc, I'm back. I got my boots. I'm excited. Let's go. Let's get out of here.
Marty, we have a problem. The time travel car won't start.
Oh, no. What can we do? What are we going to do?
My chapped, bloody testicles, Marty.
What? You want me to lick them?
Yes, Marty. It's the only way to fix our time travel car. You have to lick my balls, Marty. The saliva needs to be warm and fresh, and it must be administered by your tongue, Marty.
But I don't understand how that would work, Doc. I'm confused.
Marty, trust me.
And that's basically what all of these shorts were. An old man trying to trick a young boy into licking his balls.
With and then they play da 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 da.
Yes. And
God damn.
that is what Rick and Morty evolved from.
Yeah, I also I knew Doc and Marty from the internet, and I couldn't believe that was going to be the starting point for a TV show. Impossible.
I think that's why I didn't watch Rick and Morty in its first month or so, because I was like, oh, I know he's good, but what are they going to do with this idea? Like, I didn't even look into it until I found out much later. It was like, oh, this is really good. So Justin Roiland, obviously a huge creative force on Rick and Morty, but I feel like he is a real Mike Judge figure in that he is a very unlikely voice actor. And I feel like Rick and Morty are very similar to Beavis and Butthead, where they each have a very similar vocal tick that you assume would be very hard to listen to, but it actually becomes endearing and very iconic because, Beavis and Butthead have the laugh. Rick and Morty both stutter. They both stutter in the exact same way, too, because it is just Justin Roiland talking to himself.
Oh, is like this?
And then saying each other's names over and over again. Morty, hey, Morty, Rick. Like, just back and forth. It just becomes like this repetitive thing that almost is like soothing to you. The stuttering and the repetition of the characters' names.
That is such a Roiland tick. Just like, well, is this? It was all over Mr. Sprinkles as well, or
characters just saying their names. Like, I'm this guy. Hello, I'm this guy.
Oh, I'm Zibbledy Dibble.
Yeah. And another trademark of Justin Roiland is just stupid, dumb ass names.
Yes, yeah.
Like Floopy, Scroopy Noopers.
Well, so Scroopy Noopers was Dan Harmon making fun of it. He was like, oh, I can make up a name. I'm Zibbledy Zoop and I Wibbledy Quab. I'm just them all. It's kind of a mean-spirited but fun joke on how he just makes up a name.
We'll get to Dan Harmon in a second here, but Dan Harmon, we talked about this before on podcast. He has become Justin Roiland. He looks like Santa Claus now, but they have the exact same just like tone and pitch of their voice and delivery of everything they say. But it's funny, like Dan Harmon also, he is Justin Roiland, but he also does a perfect Justin Roiland impression. Like, crazy. I'm Justin Roiland. I need attention. But they really feed off of each other in positive and negative ways. So let's talk about Dan Harmon. So he's really the heart of Rick and Morty, and I say most of the brains too. Mm-hmm. And but you need the chaos of Justin Roiland for Rick and Morty to exist.
Yeah, I see Dan Harmon as this like super great storyteller, a professional writer. Who can give structure to, like, Justin Roiland, I don't think could make this show on his own. He wouldn't have sold it. He wouldn't have built it into a machine that could produce good episodes, and he couldn't run a writer's room.
Yeah.
But I also think, Dan Harmon has his own problems as being a person.
Which he's very confessional about.
Yeah, which that makes it, I mean, it's good he's confessional about it, but it also makes it uncomfortable. So there's the Harmontown documentary where you see a very raw look at the man who is Dan Harmon, to the point where like the director of it was actually asked by Harmon's reps to cut things, and he reminded them that Dan Harmon gave him final cut on that movie, and so he wasn't going to cut any of it.
Well, we saw him chugging vodka on stage in July, I believe, right?
Yes, we did. Yeah. And openly complaining about the show he was doing and that it was bad.
That's our Dan Harmon. Well, let's talk about a brief history of Dan Harmon. So, Harmon met his comedy partner Rob Schraub at Comedy Sports in Milwaukee, a sort of comedy improv training group.
Yeah, not bad.
And from there, they formed an improv group called the Dead Alewives, and they even released an album in 1996. So
I didn't know that.
That was his first real comedic break, was being part of the Dead Alewives, I guess making waves in Milwaukee. He's a very Milwaukee-looking guy, by the way.
Oh, yes. Yeah, very much.
And then he formed Channel 101 with Schraub. And Schraub is also the creator of Scud the Disposable Assassin, and Harmon wrote a chunk of that comic book series, which I've never read, but I heard it's pretty good.
It's very good. I mean, it's quite 90s, but it's very good. It was, what sucked for Rob is that it came at a time where it was a big deal that they self-published comics, but that was a real gatekeeping thing for comics then. You're not a real comic book unless you really publish it. And that's what made it take so long. 10 years later, if those were just online comics, I think it would have been way more famous.
Yeah.
And you can see a lot of the kind of sci-fi absurdism in Scud that you will see in that you'll also love in Rick and Morty.
I've wanted to read it, but it might be now too 90s. But I just love the design of Scud.
Well, you lived in the 90s. It's fun
true,
to revisit that.
But I can't. I've tried to reread Preacher like 30 times, and I can't do it.
It's not like that.
Okay,
it's not
okay.
like that.
Because that is like so 90s that it's got a real 90s stink to it. Like pogs are falling off the page.
I love Preacher. It was so important to me in the 90s, but I think I read it at the absolute perfect time, which is to be a 16-year-old in the 90s.
And angry about religion.
Yeah, you're angry
Yeah.
about religion. You're angry you can't get fucked. Like it's a lot of, you're angry at your parents, and you're also angry at the PC police trying to blah, blah, blah. Like there's a bit of that too, but that's just so dated.
You're going to smoke your clove cigarettes by lighting them with your fuck communism lighter.
Yeah, good times.
So one of their first big breakouts was a pilot made for, I believe, Fox called Heat, Vision, and Jack.
Hell yeah.
Which has been online forever. I think it's now like on a DVD somewhere. It's got to be available in some higher quality format on something. But essentially it is Owen Wilson playing a motorcycle and Jack Black, and they go around solving crimes, sort of like a 70s Knight Rider-y show.
It's a really cool idea that it was brought to life via Ben Stiller shepherding it, and he introduces it too, just to add a little more heat to it. And it's also funny to think of a time as like, oh yeah, this is before Ben Stiller became one of the most famous actors in the world, and
before he met the Fockers.
Exactly,
or met the parents. He is a Focker.
This is when he was a indie comedy writer, not a giant superstar. You know.
And so after that, I recommend everyone go out and watch that. It's on YouTube. It's got to be somewhere easy to watch. But their first mega hit that actually got made was a 2006 movie called Monster House, which they also wrote along with a writer named Pamela Petler. But I didn't want to not credit her because she's also credited for story. But I think she's, based on her credits, I think she's just a script doctor.
Okay.
Which is, a good role. But I think she just does it on a lot of movies, like punches things up.
Yeah. But that movie, I remember hearing interviews with Harmon, how he talked about like the payment for that film is what floated them being able to goof around with Channel 101 and not make money because they got a big script payment for that. And like, if you sell a movie among all your other writer loser friends in LA in the early 2000s, you're the richest man in the world to them. Like, yeah.
A major animated movie at that too. Yeah, I've never seen this. I'm afraid to watch it because it is one of those Zemeckis animated movies.
Hideous.
Yeah.
It does.
I mean, the Polar Express, it gets a lot of shit, and it should get a lot of shit. It looks hideous, but I've never seen it in motion. And I was working at the pizza pub I usually work out of, and it was on the TV, and I was looking at the TV, and I was like, this is like an episode of Xavier Renegade Angel. This is how bad this looks now.
Have you seen the scene with the Aerosmith elves in it?
Oh God, no.
Oh boy,
look that up on YouTube.
Yeah, you don't know that's the lowest of the lows in the motion capture world.
Oh my God! So it was like Monster House and Beowulf and Polar Express and
Mars
Christmas Carol,
Needs
Mars Needs
also,
Moms.
yeah.
Wow, did they stop doing that?
I think he actually he just put out that one with Steve Carell, actually.
Really?
You know what? I got to look this up
Okay.
here. Yeah, so he just did the film Welcome to Marwen, which is about that real-life gay guy, the real-life gay guy.
Oh, real life gay guy.
But no, so it stars, if you've seen, Steve Carell plays this gay soldier who was gay bashed, and his way of trying to get over it is that he builds this gigantic miniaturized battlefield of one of the battles he was in.
Okay.
With these little toy versions of himself, and it's how he gets through his pain.
So it's part live action or just all CGI?
So it's live action with Carell, but when he builds his little world of toys, which includes him and other motion captured actors, the little toy people, that's CG.
Okay.
But because they're supposed to look like weird toys, it actually kind of favors the animation style a bit
That's
better.
good.
So that is the most recent Robert Zemeckis thing. It's him, Leslie Marin, Janelle Monáe's in it. It's it looks fine.
Never heard of this, but I guess he's still doing it. And I can't speak to Monster House. Apparently it's good. I've heard good things about it, but might not have aged well in terms of visuals. But so 2006 Monster House from Dan Harmon. 2007 Acceptable TV. We already talked about that. Also 2007, the Sarah Silverman program, which Dan Harmon created with Rob Schraub and Sarah Silverman. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, Dan Harmon left the show, I believe, just as it was beginning because of creative differences with Silverman. I was not able to figure out if he fired himself or Sarah Silverman like kind of did a power move on him. But I think essentially Sarah Silverman said, "I'm already crazy, and I can't have a second crazy person working on the show with me."
I haven't read her. It's been a while ago. I read her biography, but she gets into it there, her autobiography, The Bedwetter, and she talks about how she was working with Schraub and Harmon, and I'm going to paraphrase, but she said, I love you, Dan. You're such a creative person. We will murder each other if we work on it. And this is the Sarah Silverman program. We can't make this without me. We can make this without you.
I've heard that quote too. Yeah.
Yeah. But Rob Schraub stuck around, so she actually caused a kind of creative break. I don't want to say she did, but
she was the Yoko Ono of Rob Schraub and Dan Harmon.
But seriously though, I mean, this is when they creatively broke up for whatever reason. Yeah.
I think one of the major issues for Silverman was that Dan Harmon has a very particular approach to writing stories and, developing stories, and some would call it obsessive. That would cause a lot of problems on Community. And I think that was the major issue for Silverman. Like, he was just too obsessive and too control freaky about this show. That wasn't his show.
Yeah, he seems like a very controlling guy who just has to be in charge of it. I mean, it gets good results, and there are many people who've worked with him who speak very highly of his production style of harmonizing scripts, but he also seems like a rather difficult person to have as a boss, you know? And especially if you think you should have some power and control in there, it doesn't seem like there's much space for that.
I'm not a big fan of the show, by the way. I tried
Sarah
watching
Silverman?
it. Yeah, I thought it was just like a lesser Strangers with Candy.
I can see a little bit that. Honestly, Sarah Silverman's my least favorite character in the show.
Me too. That's why I didn't like it. I didn't like her in the show.
She's supposed to be a bad character and who makes everything worse in her existence. Of course, I love seeing big slobby gay men in shows. Like, that's always fun for me. And also, like, Jay Johnston is such a funny guy.
He needs more work in general. Jay Johnston's great.
Yeah, basically his only job these days is playing Jimmy Pesto in Bob's Burgers.
Oh,
That's
really?
kind of it. Yeah. Like,
okay.
He still does it even in the most recent episodes. But yeah, no, it's got a great cast. I haven't revisited it in a while either. It's also where I first got to see actors like Tig Notaro. Like, I had not seen Tig before that.
And Justin Roiland is in the show as Blonde Craig.
That's right. Yeah. And John Hamm is also in the show.
Wow.
Like, John Hamm. Look, we get it. You can be funny, but chill out.
We're going to talk about his
Hamm.
huge penis.
I mean, look, yeah.
You can't do it all right? Just be happy with your huge penis.
You're one of the most beloved actors of your generation. You have a huge penis.
Isn't that enough?
Give it a break.
But then 2009 came and brought Community, which lasted for 6 seasons and no movie. Obviously his most well-known hit before Rick and Morty. And we all lived through Community. It wasn't that long ago, but lots of ups and downs, lots of almost cancellations, but it was always, beloved by its fans. Had a real cult following. I liked it for about 3 seasons.
I am honestly embarrassed about my obsession with Community at a time. I was super into it. I was with it from the beginning because it was the Channel 101 guy gets his own show finally on a network. Like, oh boy, this is going to be great. And I liked it at the start, and then by the middle of the first season is when it really became the weird ass show it was. It has such an incredible cast. They cast so many great people in it. Who
they made Chevy Chase funny.
Yes, yeah, and I also do think that one thing that hurt the show for me, was just the ups and downs of production. I actually really like the 6th season. I think if
you can find it,
yes, yeah,
it's worth watching.
It's such a Community move that they got put on YouTube.
Yahoo.
On Yahoo, yes, yeah. And so, but yeah, I love the series. When the 4th season happened, the gas leak season, I was like, oh, this sucks, but I'll just stick with it. And then Donald Glover left, and then Chevy Chase left, and Yvette Nicole Brown left, and it was just a lot of exits that just bring you down. And they had to end it in season 6 because the contracts with Danny Pudi and Alison Brie ran out, and so they normally sign people to 7-year deals. In their case, they only signed them to 6, and so it's like, well, if we can't bring back these people, we can't lose any more people. It's over. But I love the show. It has a similar to Rick and Morty love of destroying tropes and sitcom cliches and attacking them. I really love that about the show. And the writing too is just so strong and funny too. And though now I look back on it too, though, this is something that, like, after seeing the Harmontown documentary, I just think that, like, I see Dan Harmon's personality flaws in the characters, and when Jeff is proven to be right or taken back for being a bad person, I'm like, well, this is just you. Like, you're Jeff, and you're a bad person. I don't know if I want to forgive you via Jeff.
I kind of fell off in season 3 because the characters were just getting too negative, especially towards each other. And now that I know more about Harmon, I could see a lot of his not great state of being reflected in the show, because at a certain point I was watching this show and I was like, these characters hate each other, and now there are episodes about how they hate each other. Like, there was an episode where this new normal, it was sort of like the Frank Grimes of the world, where this normal person gets put in their world, and he's like, you people all hate each other. And I was like, well, this guy is right, but it also makes me dislike the show. So I had a real Homer's enemy moment in Community.
But that's how accelerated the meta-ness was on that show, that they'd get
season 3.
Season 3. Dan Harmon was in a very bad mental place at that time too, as he would say on the commentaries, I drank all the vodka this year. Like, a girlfriend broke up with him and he drank all the vodka.
Wasn't he drunk on commentaries too?
Multiple times.
Yeah,
yes,
I mean, he's an alcoholic.
Yeah.
He says it in interviews. He's like, I'm a lazy alcoholic.
To quote Dan Harmon.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
I'm not slandering anybody.
We watched him drink a lot of vodka in person. We were witness to it. Yes.
And his car drives him home.
Yep, yeah. So who cares?
So following him getting fired from Community, he took up podcasting, which is the true pursuit of the loser. I'm kidding, of course.
Stay in your lane, Dan
Yes,
Harmon.
come on, celebrities, let us do the podcasting. And in this sort of period of limbo, like Justin Roiland, when he was in limbo, started Grandma's Virginity, Harmon started Harmontown, which has become an institution in podcasting and live shows, and also spawned things like Harmon Quest.
It's a really fun show that I like the looseness of it, but also that there is a mayor / real host of it who can direct traffic, as Harmon gets increasingly drunk.
Yes.
And it was fun we got to see it live, but unfortunately this is their first post-meltdown closing one.
Yeah.
And so they were all in kind of a foul mood, I think.
There was a lot of it was just sort of tedious and not hilarious, but the end thing that Dan Harmon did made me cry laughing. It was a rap. What was the rap he did?
Oh yeah, it was actually very psychic abilities. I have to say. But yeah, it was like the shy rapper. I think
I thought it was like DJ Gun Control.
Oh, DJ Gun Control,
Yeah.
controlling. That's right. Yeah.
But he had to like constantly restate what his plans were, or what his intent was. I'm sorry, I'm not doing it justice, but the entire night.
It's the episode with Andy Kindler, guys. You can look it up.
Andy Kindler being sick and confused on stage.
I felt bad for Andy Kindler.
He had to carry a lot of the weight, and he was not doing great.
I think he was a late replacement too, and he was just talking about how he had recently been diagnosed with OCD. He was taking medication. It was just a little uncomfortable, But yeah, I mean, the Harmontown, actually you can watch Dan Harmon write pilots and scripts for Rick and Morty during the Harmontown documentary. Like,
I didn't watch that documentary because I did not want to hate Dan Harmon, and people told me that will probably make you hate Dan Harmon.
Yeah, no.
Especially if you've known people like him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I've known a few. I've known a couple Dan Harmons in my life, and I used to love Dan Harmon so much, and I appreciate as an artist that he wanted to show all of his let all of his warts be shown in this Harmontown documentary. But when you see him just be like mean to his girlfriend and say that that he part of him loves making her cry and he thinks delicious tears, like. There's really like, you're just a shitty guy. Like, fuck you is what you hope. But this is the arc. That's why it kind of hurts Community too for me. The arc of every Community episode is that Jeff is an awful person. And by the end of it, he makes a speech about how he's trying to improve. And that resets things. Dan Harmon does that in Harmontown. And it's just like,
he's a real person. Too.
Yeah, how much of this is real and how much of this is you trying to script your life to sound like a redemptive arc?
I just don't like the philosophy that I see with a lot of Dan Harmon supporters, and that like, let the angry, mean, crazy person create. All the work he does is therapy, and everyone has to, help him. But ultimately, we get great art out of it. But it's like, you don't have to be hateful and belligerent to be a good artist.
Yeah. That's a very
Yeah.
like teenage way of looking at art that I looked at that too. Like I think of how like, oh, Stanley Kubrick made this amazing art by torturing people to do 100 takes in a row until they go insane. But then you get a great thing. I was just like, could he have just been a great person who then also tortured people after making great art? Like, you didn't get a great 100th take. You just tortured people while making good things. And there's so many great artists out there who don't hurt other people that I have a lot less patience than I used to for giving a troubled artist, you know?
I think he's doing better now emotionally, especially
so.
after the Harmontown thing and his divorce and everything.
Yeah, I think the divorce maybe helped.
And having a consistent job that lets him buy Teslas and stuff
Yes,
is really good for him too. I
Yeah.
mean, again, 70 more episodes of Rick and Morty. He's on board. I don't know if he's doing anything else. Like Justin Roiland has a production company and he makes like things like Hot Streets.
He's working on another
And
show
he's-
right now,
okay.
actually. I'll
And he's
talk
got-
about it a little later.
Okay, and he's got that VR company too, Squanch Tendo.
Yeah, honestly, he's giving himself too many jobs. But, well, I mean, he's in his 20s. Dan is in his, like, late 40s now. Like, he's not...
Yeah.
It's a difference in energy levels, I think.
So more about Rick and Morty. Like I said before, my estimation at least is it feels like the next generation of Futurama. Like Futurama ended the same year Rick and Morty began. It felt like a real passing of the torch. Like Rick and Morty is a show from a younger person's perspective. It's way less Harvard-y and way less dry and more raw and, you know, dark and nihilistic. And like Futurama, it has high concept plots that are just very interesting in premise, but it also is not afraid to get emotional, which I think Rick and Morty did a little too much sometimes, especially towards there are great like raw emotional scenes in Rick and Morty, but I feel like they understood how well it worked. So by season 2 ends with the song Hurt.
Yes.
And I thought at first, like, oh, the joke is you're doing this. It's like, oh, no, you want me to take this seriously. Like, that was a little too on the nose for me.
Well, actually, that Hurt one, that could have worked differently if they just picked a different song. It's just like, Hurt is so overplayed that it's the point of parody now. And it's not, it doesn't work as just the straight use of the song. When a fucking Wolverine movie uses it, like, it's done. Like, it's been overdone to death. There's tons of sad songs most people haven't heard. Popularize that one.
I think they learned the wrong lesson from Futurama. I'm not bagging on the show, by the way, but I think like Futurama was like, okay, so they understood like what things were emotional and what things resonated with fans. So it was like, you know, Fry's brother. That episode was really great. It wasn't super emotional, but the end was really great. Things about like Fry and Leela's parents. And so later they weaponized that with that dog episode, which I hate that episode. I'm sorry, everybody. I know you like it.
Why?
But it feels like it's so it's like emotional propaganda, which what all fiction is ultimately,
Sure.
but I could see the strings.
There's a line that you can cross there. And they did more in the Comedy Central years too, like revealing that in a way Hermes is Bender's father too, like that he is a parent to Bender, and just all these kind of emotional reveals, which you need that kind of emotionality, but you can hit it too much. And Rick and Morty definitely does of like, well, now it's time for suicidal depression over some music.
Yeah.
It's like, must we every time?
Well, the
Really?
Futurama thing was like, let's get a bunch of emotional scenes over a licensed song, and that'll be like how we end an episode. But
And that's where Rick and Morty went too.
definitely, yeah. It's an easy button to push, but don't push it too often. That's my opinion. I did want to talk about the voice acting on the show, which is all great. So Justin Roiland doing Rick and Morty, very great, very Mike Judgy, and then he's playing two characters with a similar vocal tick or just talking to each other back and forth. Also, super underrated performer Chris Parnell.
Oh yeah, Chris
as
Parnell,
Jerry.
so good. Chris Parnell rules at everything he's in.
He got fired and then rehired at SNL. Like, he was so underused at SNL. His stuff on SNL is so great, just as like a very white kind of like 50s straight man.
He's funny in everything. I mean, as Dr. Spaceman in 30 Rock, he was hilarious. He's great in every voice appearance he makes in any cartoon, even though it's always the Chris Parnell voice. He's just so funny, and he is the perfect pathetic dad. Like, he is the perfect sad loser.
For the ultimate loser.
Yeah.
And the backstory of Jerry and Beth are so great, where Jerry just got some woman who was way too good for him and knocked her up, and she's sort of stuck with this horrible man.
Yeah, and she's voiced by Sarah Chalk, who she has a long history with Harmon. She appeared in some early Channel 101 stuff when she had free time in between Scrubs, and then like by the third episode of The Boo, they had to replace her with a puppet because because Sarah Chalke's busy, guys. Like she
Yeah.
is making movies and TV shows.
And making the Connors now, right?
Yeah.
She was second Becky.
Yeah, and I think she played a different character than Becky once. It was
Because
two Beckys.
Becky
on the show.
one came back. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay. I didn't watch the Connors for obvious reasons. And we also have, I just found this out, Spencer Grammer is playing Summer. Great voice. Spencer Grammer, Kelsey Grammer's daughter.
That's
Oh,
great.
come now, Spencer, really?
Is this what you wanted? That's so funny that she's a famous cartoon character now, too.
Yeah,
after her father.
I saw the name Spencer Grammer in the credits a billion times. I never put it together. That's Kelsey Grammer's daughter from one of his 14
Me too.
wives.
I didn't. Yeah, it's. I hope he's a good dad. He seemed like a pretty bad dad in the clips I saw of him from whatever Real Housewives show his then wife was on. Like he seems like he's not a very good father though. But maybe he was good to Spencer. I don't know.
And they get a lot of great voice actors, like voice acting legends like Rob Paulson and Maurice LaMarche, also Keith David, and lots of Mr. Show people. Like they have. Can we talk? Like, what are some other voice actors they've had on the show? I'm drawing a blank here.
Well, he is a huge gamer.
Yes,
Justin Roiland
yeah.
is. So lots of video game actor voices, such as Tara Strong is in this episode. There's also Nolan North. He cast Nolan North because he's like, Nolan North is awesome at this. Which a quick star fucking story of mine, if I may.
Please.
When at Comic-Con at a bad website called Fandom, I got to...
Never heard of it.
No one has. Anyway, though, I did get to interview Nolan North, and I was at Comic-Con, so I was wearing my Comic-Con 2014 Rick and Morty shirt, which is the selfie picture with the gerbils coming out of buttholes shot from the episode. And so I interviewed Nolan North, and at the end of it, he's like, hey, I love your shirt, man. Hey, did you know? And I was like, hey, you don't need to tell me you're Scroopy Noopers. And then he does a couple lines of the characters to me. I'm like,
nice.
You are the nicest guy in the world, Nolan North. I love you. Like, so, but anyway, yeah, he cast Nolan North on it because he loves Nolan North as a voice actor. And Nolan North got to be on fucking Rick and Morty in the first season before it was famous. So yeah, he casts a lot of, Justin Roiland grew up at the same age as us. So he watched Animaniacs. He cast some Animaniacs folks. He played all these video games. He cast all these video game folks.
Yeah, so like Tom Kenny, Phil Hendry,
Oh,
Dan
yeah.
Harmon does a voice. Stephen Colbert was in it. Just so many people. Patton Oswalt. Just go if you want to see the, Dana Carvey, David Cross. Like just so many people have shown up on Rick and Morty. It's the new cool thing to do. Is to be a Rick and Morty guest voice.
It's
the new Simpsons guest voice.
It is. And then Rick and Morty guested on The Simpsons.
That's true.
So, actually, I guess it's time to tell my Justin Roiland story, too, on this.
You rubbed elbows with Roiland?
I did.
This is our Rubbing with Roiland segment.
Well, so I was an early fan of Rick and Morty. I was one of the first people to tell friends to watch it. The Meeseeks episode was my usual way of getting people on board with it. I even, at Comic-Con 2014, I bought a Rick and Morty shirt from the tiny booth Rick and Morty paid for themselves to have in Artist Alley, which a year later they own Comic-Con. Rick and what a difference a year made there. But so when I was a video game reviewer and playing Smash Brothers for the Wii U 2 weeks ahead of time, I then saw through being a Twitter stalker that Justin Roiland had come to San Francisco, and I was able to find an email for him, and I emailed him to say, hey, would you want to play Smash Brothers? And he immediately responded, and yes, I'll play it right now. And I had to say, I meant tomorrow night. And then he says, oh, so it's a big lie. I can't, but eventually we did meet up. We played Smash Brothers for 20 minutes at most. And then he says the thing I had no clue he would say, which is, do you just want to watch some new Rick and Morty episodes? We're like, yes, we do.
You were an unpaid focus group.
I think we were at the end, but hey, we got to hang out with a famous guy, and we got to give him something back by watching his new episodes, and he gets to see if fans of the show like it. And of course we did. With Total Rickall was the best one of the ones he showed us, and it was easy to tell it was going to be amazing, even in animatic voiced form. And we also got to see the season premiere, and that was the one where he's sitting with us and says, I got a bunch of Mr. Show people on this one. And then we're live in front of him guessing the voice. And we're all just like, okay, come on. When's it going to be Jay Johnston? I'm waiting on the Jay Johnston. Oh, there's Jay Johnston. Okay. Oh, Jill Talley. That's Jill Talley. I was very into wanting to prove to him I was a super fan.
You didn't tell me you were hanging out with him until after.
Well, we weren't as close then.
I guess it's true.
In 2014, we weren't podcasting regularly together.
We need to use your Roiland connection to get him on this podcast.
Well, Justin Roiland is a lot more famous now than when we befriended each other. He has way more people to buy amiibos from than just me back then.
You barely grabbed those coattails, Henry, but that's a great story.
So yeah, I did. My claim to fame on this episode is that I got to see Total Recall and know it was genius 9 months before the world did. So,
and when we get back from this break, you'll hear about why it's so amazing.
I wanna be alive, I am alive, alive, I tell you. Mother, bypassing override, won't you? I'm running a stream, I am alive.
Post-apocalyptic scavengers.
Bypassing override,
Post-apocalyptic scavengers.
I am alive. This is my brother. Not that family means anything. Booyah. Who wants to be my pussy of a decade? I wanna be alive, I am alive.
Ooh-wee, welcome to the break. It sounded more like Bill Cosby than Mr. Poopy Butthole, but hey, it's Bob Mackey.
Grass tastes bad. This is Henry. Hi.
And we're here to tell you about the Talking Simpsons Network and how you can help support the show and also get all kinds of bonus fun stuff on top of that. So if you go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, check that out. If you give at the $5 level, if you sign up at that level, good every episode of this podcast and Talking Simpsons a week ahead of time and ad-free, and all kinds of bonus podcasts like Talking Critic, Talking Futurama, our 2019 miniseries, perhaps a second 2019 miniseries if we unlock that at 11,000, and we just might. Also, all kinds of other stuff, like a monthly community podcast. We also have lots of interviews with animation legendaries, and season wrap-ups and deleted scene specials for Talking Simpsons, and we have a special new $10 tier, which includes all the videos we've done for 18 months, but a new monthly podcast. Henry, what is that podcast?
For all our subscribers at the $10 level, you'll get access to our monthly What a Cartoon Movie podcast. If you love how we talk about animated series on here, but wish that we did the animated feature films, some amazing ones like Batman Mask of the Phantasm or Kiki's Delivery Service, you'll hear me and Bob chat in depth about the history, the making of, and our reactions to those classic animated films on the What a Cartoon Movie podcast. It's our premium podcast available to $10 and up folks. Only comes out once a month, and it's chosen through a poll, only available to subscribers. It's totally worth it. Me and Bob love doing it, and we can't wait for what our January show is going to be. And yeah, don't forget, subscribers, if you signed up right now, you can hear next week's episode of us talking about a classic of the regular show series with the two guys who storyboard and wrote that episode, Toby Jones and Owen Dennis. It is a great, great What a Cartoon, one of our best ever. And you can hear that right now if you became a subscriber at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
And if you subscribe, you can either use the Patreon app to hear all of our bonus content. It's a great app. I used it for a bit when my phone got stolen. But you can also, if you want to just fit us in alongside your normal podcast, when you sign up for the network, you get a nice little code. You can access that at any time. You drop that into your podcast machine of choice, and it will help you download all of our bonus podcasts alongside of all of your regular podcasts. I do it all the time. I give to $100 worth of Patreon, so I get tons of bonus podcasts filtering into my little app, and it works perfectly. So check it out. It's a real easy thing to do. You can help support us and get all kinds of bonus podcasts on top of that. Probably thousands of hours at this point. I'm not even sure. I can't count very well right now, but it's got to be at least 1,000 hours. Come on.
100 hours, 100 years. What a Cartoon podcast.
Exactly. But thanks for listening, folks. We'll let you get back to Rick and Morty and the episode Total Rickall.
Morty, you gotta, come on. You gotta
It's
for
the
you,
middle
Morty.
of the night. What are you talking about?
Come on, you got a surprise for you. Come on, hurry up. Gotta go,
Ow,
gotta go.
ow, you're tugging
Come
me
on,
too
I got a
hard.
surprise for you, Morty.
How is my son supposed to pass his classes
Let's go.
if you keep dragging him off for high-concept sci-fi rigmarole?
Oh, man, Rick.
You smell that? That's the smell of adventure, Morty. You're a good kid. I'm gonna accomplish great things, and you're gonna be part of them. And you're gonna keep your mouth shut about it, Morty. I'm gonna park it right here, Morty, right here on this.
Hey, Dad, where's Morty?
He's busy.
Your father is a horrible influence on our son. Boom! Told you! In your face! He is ruining our child! Wait, what am I celebrating?
Rick Portal, hurry! I know that new situations can be intimidating. You're looking around and it's all scary and different, but you know, eating them head on, charging right into them like a bull. That's how we grow as people. Now, if you just stick with me, Morty, we're gonna be, holy crap, Morty, run!
Adult Swim presents a new comedy from Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland.
Well, I can see you're busy.
Rick and Morty, premiering Monday, December 2nd at 10:30 on Adult Swim.
Cover me! Oh, man!
Science makes sense. Family doesn't.
Oh, this is going to be such a fun!
Oh, yeah. You gotta get swifty. You gotta get swifty in here. It's time to get swifty. Uh-oh. You gotta get swifty. Oh, yeah. Take off your pants and your panties. Shit on the floor. Time to get swifty in here.
So we're back and we're talking about the Rick and Morty episode Total Rickall, which opens at the breakfast table. I believe it's breakfast they're eating. And wacky Uncle Steve is there, the very familiar character for all Rick and Morty viewers. He's talking about how he bought the whole family tickets to Paris for letting him stay with them. And Rick, you know, he comes into the kitchen. He has no idea who wacky Uncle Steve is, so he shoots him in the head. And this is what follows.
But I've known him my whole life.
No, you haven't, Jerry. These telepathic little bastards, they embed themselves in memories, and then they use those to multiply and spread out and take over planets. It's disgusting.
Steve wasn't real?
He's a real piece of shit. This is a big one. Somebody probably tracked it in last week on the bottom of their shoe or on a piece of alien fruit.
Someone?
Get off the high road, Summer. We all got pink eye because you won't stop texting on the toilet.
But Uncle Steve taught me how to ride a bike.
No, Steve put that memory in your brain so he could live in your house, eat your food, and multiply. We could be infested with these things, so we gotta keep an eye out for any zany, wacky characters that pop up.
Ooh-wee! Whatever you want, Rick. We're here to help.
Thanks, Mr. Poopy Butthole. I always could count on you.
So that's a great setup for the episode. So Uncle Steve turns out to be a parasite.
Yes.
And they have to lock themselves in the house before so they can figure out what's going on. And of course, we have Mr. Poopy Butthole, which is one of the best new characters of Rick and Morty. They never really use that much.
Yeah, well, he
just shows up at the end of the season again. That's it, right?
He's just
what's
for this
gonna
episode.
happen now? Ooh-wee.
Yeah, now after this episode, he only appears at the end of seasons. Yeah. Like, ooh wee, can't wait to see what happens next. Ooh wee, and I'll see you in 18 months. Ooh wee. I mean,
Mr. Poopy Butthole is definitely a Justin Roiland style name.
Yes, it's perfect. Like Mr. Poopy Butthole is such all that set up to.
It's such a stupid name.
Well, that it comes after Rick saying like, we need to watch out for any zany characters. Thanks, Mr. Poopy Butthole. Like that's so. Well, the opening is such an amazing misdirect because you think this very well could be the episode about Uncle Jerry comes to town and then they go to Paris. And instead, he just shoots Uncle Jerry in the head immediately. You're just like, wait, because you never heard that he didn't have an Uncle Jerry, you know?
For all we know. And it's great.
It's so cruel.
We know what happens at the end of the episode, but all the Mr. Poopy Butthole misleads are just like, you know, I can always count on you. And then he keeps it like, you can always count on me.
Yep. And then he
I've always been there for you.
He constantly does the things that the parasites do of saying, hey, remember that time? Remember this? Like he's clearly on the side of the parasites. And it's such a great setup the whole time. And then it then becomes, they redo the opening of the show to have Mr. Poopy Butthole in all of the past events. Yeah, no, the animation on this definitely feels like a tough one for the animators to have to deal with for sure.
So many new characters.
Yeah. Oh, and this episode was written, I wanted to mention, by Mike McMahon, which is he was story editor on the first season, still works on Rick and Morty, but is also making a new show with Justin Roiland called Solar Opposites, which is for Hulu coming in 2020.
Really? Cartoon Network not paying you enough, Justin?
Maybe Hulu outbid him in the for the Justin Roiland show, though it's yeah, I mean, if you look at the drawings, it's like, is this a Rick and Morty spinoff? Because the art is exactly the same.
I guess it is his style, though, right?
Yeah, it's the Justin Roiland style. And so they're making this show like Mike didn't quit the show didn't quit Rick and Morty to work on Solar Opposites. They're doing it on top of the 70 new episodes of Rick and Morty they're working on. So you can look forward to that. And Roiland will be 2 of the voices on the show too. So,
So you've heard his voice before, but
Yes.
we should mention the art side of things. So I believe the first season's supervising director was Pete Michaels.
Yes.
Maybe the first 2. When did Wes Archer step in? Season 3?
That would be season 3. Pete
Okay.
Michaels is still a supervising director on this episode. And Pete Michaels, he directed, we were just talking, I think didn't he direct the Frasier episode of Simpsons?
He did. He actually was on The Simpsons from the second season.
Wow.
Not as director. He worked his way up to director. His first episode as director was, Brother from Another Series. That was his first
Wow.
episode as director.
And then he was also, I believe, a supervising director on Family Guy as
I
well.
believe so, yeah.
This also, production-wise, we gave so many compliments to Aqua Teen Hunger Force, so this is not a knock to it. But Adult Swim works at a certain level for their original productions. And Rick and Morty took that up a level, to be sure, with not network quality, but definitely better than William Street level of budget.
There are flourishes. The characters can do more things, I feel like they definitely raised the bar a lot with Rick and Morty.
And you've got Simpsons OG Wes Archer working on this show. He's worked on the Simpsons as early as any animator could have. That's how long Wes Archer has worked in animation. And so for him to be a director on the series is pretty damn impressive.
Pretty damn expensive, I would say, too, to hire Wes Archer. So Rick puts blast shields up around the house, so we know we're going to be trapped in the house for the entire episode, presumably. And it feels kind of claustrophobic, and that makes Mr. Poopy Butthole remember when they got trapped in an elevator after the Hulk musical.
Jerry, buttons don't work better if you hit them harder, and foam fists don't make you strong.
I know. Friends make you strong. I watched the same musical you did.
Why couldn't I bring my portal gun?
Why did all the drinks have to be extra large? Oh, the Hulk, I just got that.
Just pee your pants. I did it the minute we got stuck. Oh, yeah. Yeah, shame me. At least when I'm disgusting, it's on purpose.
Oh, y'all, we're gonna be fine. I've always been here for you guys, and I always will be. Ha ha!
Somebody call for repairs?
Oh, yeah!
It's me, Cousin Nicky. I'm walking here. I mean, I'm not. I'm crouching in the elevator shaft, but hey, I'm walking here.
And that was Cousin Nicky, who actually turns out to be a parasite. So
Ryan Ridley again.
Whenever they flash back in this episode, they generate whatever was in the flashback in their living room. So Cousin Nicky then appears in the living room with his classic "I'm walking here,"
and then his little arm movement too, I'm walking here. I mean, I'm not. No, and all the flashbacks are fucking hilarious. So we've seen animated series have done fake flashback episodes before. That is not a extremely new concept in animation. South Park did it for their first clip show that it quickly became that's what I call a sticky situation.
Yeah.
The Clerks show did it in their second episode, one of their funniest episodes too. So this takes the idea of fake flashbacks and then turns it into basically The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, but for fake flashbacks. So this brings the fake flashback comedy parody trope to a whole nother level, and I really love that about it. It's executed too in the same way sitcoms of the 80s would do their actual clip show episodes, which is they'd all be on one set and not go anywhere because it would save money.
And be trapped inside for some reason, or trapped in one location for some reason.
We're all in the freezer. I got to stay warm so tell me memories here. And then the Hulk musical is such a funny concept. It's clearly a play off the Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark musical. But this time it's about the Hulk. And so there's this really funny video series by Jello Apocalypse on YouTube called blank is basically, so this is basically, and he's done them for multiple animated series. And he did one for Rick and Morty, very funny, that just sums up the whole spirit of Rick and Morty. And he points out that Summer pees her pants a lot on the show, that it almost feels like it's somebody's thing.
Fetish?
Yeah.
Or just the hidden character ability.
And so I was thinking about that when she said, I'd already peed my pants. I was like, oh, there's one right there. And let me tell you guys, don't do what I tried to do and search how many times she peed her pants, because you'll go to some interesting fetish websites.
Wow.
So don't. It turned out for me, that's not a fetish of mine.
I'm glad we all know that now. But so obviously Rick kills Cousin Nicky. And we get a nice little flashback to them finding a Nazi submarine.
Oh, yes.
And I know one of these quotes is one of your favorite quotes, Henry, about if you're comfortable with being called a Nazi, nothing else is going to hurt your feelings.
Yes, yeah.
Like, we got a word for people like you, pal.
Think before you talk shit. I love that line too. But no, I think of that odd line all the time when people try to own someone with logic, just like, hey, you're a fucking dick. It's like, this guy's a goddamn Nazi. What is your insult going to do? Are you gonna, you proved you're better than this Nazi? Yeah, of course he is. Of course you are better than that guy. I also like right before that scene starts, another of my favorite lines is Cousin Nicky calling him Mr. Poopy Pants.
Mr. Poopy Pants.
Hey, Mr. Poopy Pants is right.
That shows you he's not real. But in the submarine, they're saved by Mr. Belvedere parody called Mr. Beauregard.
I love Mr. Beauregard.
And this starts a series of flashbacks that unfortunately are kind of visual, but I wanted to capture all of them in a row because it's sort of like a rapid fire series of flashbacks.
Don't flash back!
You're just gonna make more swelling.
Don't
Just
worry,
relax.
Jerry. We called the fire department.
You know they won't come here anymore.
Marmalade is served.
I guess I take back what I said about British cuisine.
Don't take that, Summer.
We're trying to sleep.
I don't want to go to the dance alone.
Then perhaps you shouldn't.
Mr. Beauregard.
Shall we, Master Morty?
We shall.
Oh, wait. Don't leave without letting Photography Raptor take a picture.
So you meet a bunch of new characters like Frankenstein, Sleepy Gary, Photography Raptor, Mr. Beauregard.
That's another of my favorite lines in this, hearing Morty say, "We shall." Like, it's so fucking stupid. And
I mean, we haven't really talked to him yet, but so Mr. Poopy Butthole is a great name. I also like the name Sleepy Gary.
Yes, no,
The character is always like in a stocking cap.
Yes, it is. It's so funny that one of the weakest, so the parasites are just making people up, and they're kind of bad at it, but they can't think people. It's just such a fun, clever idea that's so dense of the characters on the show. If they just met a Sleepy Gary, they'd be like, well, this is obvious. But in their memories, he seems as real as anybody. And it's just so funny that one of the weakest, Sleepy Gary, he's the one they say, oh no, he's your real father. He married Beth 15 years ago.
They have a really close connection. Is this sort of like a polyamorous situation or
no, Jerry. Well, I guess Jerry's been with Sleepy Gary, as we will find out later.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's ever been with Beth.
That's true.
In this new memories here.
He's Sleepy Gary's live-in lover.
Yes, yeah. Well, and that Mr. Beauregard, that they also insert him into the opening, and his opening is always there for the rest of the season. The Mr. Beauregard pillow fight appears in the opening.
Oh, really? Okay. I totally missed that.
And then we come back and all those characters are there. I also it's just Frankenstein. There's no other pull on it. It's just
he's Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah. And he's voiced by Kevin Michael Richardson.
Okay.
He's another of the great regulars of voice acting. You hear him in everything. He's always awesome. He's the new Shredder, or the current Shredder, or maybe now he's like 2 Shredders ago. There's too many Shredders.
Uncle Phil's my favorite Shredder, number 1.
Yeah.
First is the best.
R.I.P.
So Rick then counts all the people in the room. There are now 10. So he needs to write the number 6 down again on a piece of paper. He's helped by Pencilvester, who Rick has a real affinity for. Rick doesn't want to kill Pencilvester later in this episode.
He's very touched by Pencilvester. He's just so cute. He's a pencil. I mean, he's a fun Tom Kenny voice. He's like, hey, it's me, Pencilvester. And that him writing the number 6 down, his memory just saying 6, 10, what's the difference? I just like writing number 6. Well, I do remember that, but I'd also never do that.
And so they decide to check for hard evidence on their phone. So Beth looks at her phone. There are no pictures of Mr. Poopy Butthole. And Mr. Poopy Butthole looks on his phone, and there are no pictures of Beth. And on Summer's phone, there are nothing but pictures of her friends.
We're not Mormon or dying.
Mormon or dying.
And now when at the end of the episode that Mr. Poopy Butthole is real, and it's like, boy, they should have taken pictures together. But then again, I just spent the Christmas Day with my mom and didn't take any pictures there scary. It doesn't feel, even though we can take pictures all the time with our phones, it just never feels like something to do.
With your parents.
Yeah,
No.
exactly.
Then we learn about Summer's only friend Tinkles, a magic ballerina lamb who takes her to Never Past Bedtime Land in a nice little fantasy song sequence.
That song is so fun because it becomes a rave so gradually you barely even notice. And though back to the urine thing, she is named Tinkles.
Tinkles! Wow. So this is not subtext anymore. I don't think.
But I also like about Tinkles is that it is Tara Strong pretty much doing Bubbles.
Bubbles, yeah.
Which is a very cute voice that I like a lot. But it's, Tara Strong, she's a pro. She's awesome at everything. And the going to Never Past Bedtime Land. So cute.
I think we'll go out with that song. But
okay.
So Rick is skeptical about Tinkles, but then Tinkles shows up with all of her friends, and Frankenstein admits he was on the wrong side of the pitchfork about this one. And Rick can't figure out what is real and what is not.
Look, I'm not used to being this unsure for this long. I'm just gonna aim for shoulders, starting with the weird girl.
Grandpa Rick!
Hold still, Summer.
Rick, that is my daughter.
Oh, yeah, well, what if you just think that, Sleepy Gary? I've known you for 15 years. Don't make me hurt you.
Rick, these are our family and friends. The people we barbecue with. Have you forgotten the barbecue?
Wait, why would you want me to? You're one of them, aren't you?
Rick, you love those barbecues, Rick. You love them. Hey!
Remember it, Rick?
Shut up, Hammer Eye. Shut up, Amish Cyborg. What is this, 90s Conan?
I had to stop with that line. That's
Love
a
that
great line.
Love that. I mean, that's
I
another.
like when Rick is suddenly a comedy nerd for no reason.
Oh, those are so funny.
Yeah.
And that Rick says things that no 60-year-old man would say, but kids who grew up watching 90s Conan and remembering all the ridiculous characters surrounding him like that. That also feels like a Dan Harmon commentary on like, you guys are ripping off 90s Conan with all these ridiculous characters.
We'll still make the joke, but at least acknowledge that.
and also Matt Walsh is so funny as Sleepy Gary.
Oh, I was wondering who Sleepy Gary was. Yeah. He's a much better dad than Jerry.
Yes, yeah, that he's so...
I've known you for 15 years.
He's so strongly defending his family, while meanwhile, Jerry is just like his usual spineless loser.
He's too in love with Sleepy Gary. He doesn't care about anyone else.
I know. It's his best friend. They've known each other since high school. Like his delivery too of just like, we're a family. I've known Beth since high school. And her husband, Sleepy Gary, is so great. It's just like, whoa, that was very presumptive of that parasite to not only become Sleepy Gary, but to insist upon himself now being the husband and father of the kids.
That's great. All of this causes Rick to flash back to a barbecue, which then fills their entire house with characters like a Where's Waldo picture.
Which he calls out explicitly and then tells us we're going to commercial.
Yeah, talks about all the crazy characters in the room.
Very often Rick knows he's on a TV show and just talks to the camera. Well, blah, 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 that's my new saying now, bitch. Woo,
But people think that Rick is overreacting, and he's got a history of overreacting.
Even you have to admit, you do tend to overreact to stuff.
You guys, we gotta hurry. I just got back from Walmart. They're selling Nintendo 3DS systems for $149.99 on sale. Plus, every time you buy one, you get a $50 gift card. Brings the total price down to $110 after tax. Now listen, we can flip those sons of bitches for $230 a piece. Easy! They're all limited edition Zelda ones. Hurry! Hurry, come with me. We can be rich, and we also all get to keep one, and we can play Nintendo games. Nintendo, give me free stuff.
You didn't need to watch the episode with Justin Roiland to know that was Justin Roiland's real life stuff coming through.
Yeah, but
that is what happened for me in my viewing with them. When I saw with Justin Roiland, I remembered behind the scenes about me. I worked at a video game website. I wrote a Black Friday guides ad in 2013. I promoted that sale.
Oh, so that was a 2013 Black Friday sale. Wow.
Yeah, actually, so it was the 2013 Black Friday sale. The history of this joke is that Nintendo had a brand new version of the Nintendo 3DS XL that came with Zelda: A Link Between Worlds, which was then brand new. It normally retailed at $229, and it was slowly being undercut by multiple places that got down to a base level of $149. Nobody was selling it for lower than $149. And so I actually think it was Target, not Walmart, but it might have been Walmart too. Both to one of them to undercut all the rest and put it down to $149, then gave a gift card with it. And so this joke really spoke to me because I had thoughts of that too, of like, if you bought this, these are all at a profit, and these are rare Zelda systems of a 3DS XL. You could sell them. The only flaw in that plan is they would all be sold out by the moment you got to Walmart, and then you're just stuck in a shitty Black Friday line. And at best, what if you made like $400 on it? Was that really worth ruining your Black Friday?
And all the time it takes us to sell those things on eBay? Yeah.
List them all on eBay. It's
Poor
a lot of extra
planning
work.
on Rick's part.
And, but yes, I knew that was Justin Roiland in there, but when watching it with Justin Roiland and a friend of his friend said, "Oh, that was Justin at Thanksgiving too." I was like, I figured. Yes, I knew. And actually, the one more behind the scenes story about this, that is very much Justin Roiland's actual messaging of he does want Nintendo to send him free things.
I mean, if I had a TV show, I'd be trying to get free stuff from everybody.
And I did try to hook him up with a Nintendo PR person, but I don't know what happened. The communications broke down or something. If Justin Roiland ever hears this, dude, I tried to set you up with free things in Nintendo.
I bet Nintendo wishes they were on his good side now.
That's what I tried to tell them. It's just like, guys, Justin Roiland, but this was before season 2 came out. Rick and Morty wasn't that big yet. So I think now they regret it. Or they better regret it. But yes, that is the extra behind the scenes to that joke, is that I did try to get Justin Roiland free Nintendo stuff. Did not work out.
So after this, Jerry has a heart-to-heart with Sleepy Gary. Jerry thinks he's not real. It's a very Jerry thing to do, especially because he's one of the few non-parasites. And we get a nice flashback to a very real romantic moment between them. Perhaps the first moment where they fell in love and made love on a boat.
I love that joke so much because there's a lot of gay panic jokes are like, oh, isn't gayness funny kind of thing? And this is just played, it is a joke, but it is played so real of just, these are two people having sex and falling in love on
What
a
are we
vacation.
doing?
Like, what are we doing? And then it's just a slow, sensual kiss at sunset in Italy. And
in the middle of this weird sci-fi story about Mr. Poopy Butthole and Frankenstein.
And it's also a very funny gag that to think of a time when they're like, I hear they're filming the new Star Wars movie over there.
Yeah.
When there wasn't a new Star Wars movie out, it was just a theory what the new Star Wars film would be.
Well, presumably, I think this was a flashback to 15 years ago when he met Sleepy Gary.
Okay.
And they were filming episode 1 because this was probably written in 2014, I'm guessing.
Yeah, you know what? I bet you're right.
And 15 years earlier was 1999. So
I loved his line about like, maybe we'll see Chewbacca. What are we doing? And just that, and then also too, the Jerry, goddamn, the Jerry is such a loser that he's surrounded by parasites who are insisting they're real, and he has such a low opinion of himself and lack of self-confidence, he begins to believe he isn't real.
Yeah.
And like there's this moment of Sleepy Gary kind of shocked because he's like, this guy's such a loser, we convinced the real guy he's one of us. This is insane. And it's kind of sweet that out of all the things that Sleepy Gary could gift him with, he gifts him with like, we're in love.
Yeah,
like,
actual love.
And that the parasite goes for a kiss on him.
Never in the house is what Jerry says. Frankenstein is fucking with Rick's watch. He's trying to figure out how to bring down the blast shields, and they get into a little altercation, and Frankenstein eventually takes away Rick's gun, and Reverse Giraffe shows up to explain the entire situation.
Is anyone here even real? Am I the only real person on Earth?
Maybe. Or maybe, just maybe, we're all real. You know me, I'm Reverse Giraffe. I have a short neck and legs. I went to college with Hammer Eyes. Hey! I saved Ghost in a Jar's life in Vietnam.
All right!
And Beth, how many times have I been a shoulder for you to cry on?
Too many.
Okay, so maybe we're just all fake. Or maybe there's only one deceiver here. The person that keeps telling us the path to salvation is being held prisoner and mistrusting each other.
Hey, don't blame me. I tried to shoot Summer 10 minutes ago.
I know we all have beloved memories of Rick. But are we really supposed to believe that a mad scientist inventor with a flying car just showed up on our doorstep after being gone for years?
Yeah, you know, he does have a lot of really weird made-up sounding catchphrases.
Wubba lubba dub dub, Ricky Ticky Taffy, bitch. And that's the way the news goes. Hit the sack, Jack. Uh-oh, somersault, jump. AIDS! And that's why I always say, shum shum, schlippity dop. Grass tastes bad. No jumping in the sewer. Burger time, rubber baby bunkers. Lick, lick, lick my balls. Yeah, say that all the time.
One of those catchphrases was one of my favorite things of Rick and Morty is when Justin Roiland flubs a line, but they leave it in the show.
Yes. Ruggy baby buggy bumby bunker.
It is a tongue twister.
Yeah, God. But I mean, that's the way the grass tastes. I mean,
on the Blu-ray cover, he's wearing an apron that says "grass tastes bad."
Yeah, I think after this, he goes like, some of those are good catchphrases. I'm just going to say them, but the one that always gets me is him just looking to camera with his hands up going, AIDS.
Yeah.
Like it's easy dark comedy of just saying a dirty word, but God, it's funny. Just AIDS. That's one of his catchphrases. And then so you got Keith David there. It's crazy that people don't cast
Goliath
Keith
himself.
David and everything. Yeah. And though this was good timing because Keith David was working on the 6th season of Community.
He lives again.
He's very get me with all this Goliath stuff. No, but he's working on the 6th season of Community. So he's a local guest too. It's easy to have him on. This was just a quick one-off. He has a much more involved role in the season. In the next episode, Show Us What You Got, playing the president, who he also plays again in the 3rd season finale. But Keith David doing Reverse Giraffe, Reverse Giraffe is such a ridiculous idea already.
He explains what he is when he shows up.
So to then have that be voiced by the powerful voice of Keith David that makes everything real, it makes it even better. And also him attacking Rick. That's another great moment of them. Their way of attacking Rick is pointing out the silliness of the premise of this entire show. It, as crazy as a Reverse Giraffe isn't a guy who lived in outer space for 20 years who then flies back in a spaceship to move in with the family. That's pretty crazy.
Wow, this is a real Homer's Enemy style takedown of its own premise, isn't it?
I mean, the show hates its own premise and attacks it quite often.
That's true. I think every episode of the show is Homer's Enemy in some way.
And also Rick, though, Rick expresses multiple things that are the signs of a narcissistic personality disorder. Early in the episode, when he says somebody must attract it in here, Summer correctly points out the only possible person would be you, Rick. And then Rick's like, hey, don't get off your high horse, Summer. And he just immediately deflects. And the same kind of thing is when just the idea that, am I the only real person on Earth?
Yeah.
That's the type of thing a narcissistic personality disorder person would think that, everyone else in the world doesn't matter. I'm the only person that matters. And that's pretty much how Rick acts all the time.
And so as a viewer, I'm supposed to act like this, right? It makes me cool.
You're a cool guy who's the smartest guy. And also IQ is the same as a Dragon Ball Z power level. And if you have the highest, then you're the most correct person.
And I'm the protagonist of reality.
Yes.
Last time I checked.
Yep. You're the everything. And even of all universes, you're the best version of you and you'd kill all the others.
That's reassuring. So Morty says to Rick, if you want us to trust you, you should open the blast shields. And so after he won't do it, Morty pulls a gun on Rick and says, take him to the garage. I won't do this in front of Pencilvester. So even Morty acknowledges Rick's close relationship with Pencilvester.
They're all so close with him. He's the most beloved of all of them, even more than Mr. Poopy Butthole.
But in the garage is when Morty figures it out.
Shut up, Morty, you brainwashed little turd that might not even be real because I'm brainwashed too.
Rick, this isn't easy for us. We all remember you as a friend.
Oh, really? Well, I remember you as a whiny little piece of shit, Morty.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I've got about 1,000 memories of your dumb little ass, and about 6 of them are pleasant. The rest is annoying garbage. So why don't you do us both a favor and pull the trigger? Do it, motherfucker. Pull the fucking trigger.
Oh, wow. Baby Wizard was a parasite? He set me up with my wife.
What the hell?
I figured it out, Rick. The parasites can only create pleasant memories. I know you're real because I have a ton of bad memories with you.
That is a great, I feel like that is the one, that's one of the major Dan Harmon touches of this episode is that someone is real if you have bad memories of them.
It is such a clever twist. It is such a great reveal. And also that, I do love that Rick calls out what a ridiculous idea that a child would be named Morty is too.
The name of an old Jewish comedy writer.
But that also makes it feel like a Dan Harmon twist is that what saves the day is their toxic relationships with each other. That was the message of every episode of Community. What brings us together is that we actually have a horrible relationship with each other, but we love each other.
They survive because they've all harmed each other psychologically in some way.
So you can't leave because you've hurt each other so much. And the flashback of the things Rick did,
The last one
Also
is the best.
horrible, yeah.
Where he not only, so the first three are just like crazy sci-fi things that happen to Morty. The last one is Rick pulling down his pants at school, and then Morty falls down the stairs.
And then he goes with the two girls laughing at Morty to laugh at him as Morty, like it's actually more painful than just seeing his like humiliation, because you see Morty stand up and just start to cry, and you see how much more painful it is than just that.
The first three are just, neglect, Rick neglecting Morty. The last one is him just trying to hurt and embarrass him in front of girls at his school.
It's so, Rick is a cruel person. This was another thing that kind of hurt my love of season 3 of Rick and Morty, was when I realized, like, I feel pretty safe in assuming Rick is Dan and Morty is Justin. And it's their kind of relationship of these two. So Dan Harmon, just like Rick, is the older, more established guy who knows everything, who hates love, who kind of shits on emotions. And he taught this much younger guy about the world. Like, the kind of parental relationship that Dan Harmon has with Justin is also similar to the one that Rick has with Morty. And I think too, though, you see as Morty matures, that's also Justin growing up and realizing, like, I can do stuff without
making
Dan
his
Harmon.
own shows, eh?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's something too that kind of hurt the show a little bit for me. Just when you know it too well, that kind of familiarity can weaken your love of a show. Even more so than people screaming at McDonald's employees about their fucking sauce.
You're not supposed to be like him.
That sauce was stupid. The Szechuan sauce was a joke. The joke is that he'd do all this to get a stupid sauce. That's the joke. It's not the answer to life. It's just a fucking sauce.
And you can get
For
Szechuan
nuggets.
sauce anywhere.
Yes.
He just wants the worst version that was available once.
At McDonald's, because
Yeah.
he's a fucking McDonald's pig as a kid, like we all were.
Our listeners know that, though.
Yes, I know.
So now they know they have to kill all of the good memory givers.
Everybody remain calm. This is gonna take some explaining. We need to kill everyone that we can only remember fondly. Who's got a bad memory about Mrs. Refrigerator?
Everyone has bad memories of me. Remember that one time? Oh, man, we couldn't stop screaming.
Roller coasters aren't bad, Mrs. Refrigerator. They're thrilling. And you've been a perfect companion to me my entire life.
The jig is up. Get me out of here. Get me out of here.
Everybody back! If you're not a parasite, you have nothing to fear. So what about Summer?
Why am I always your go-to? Never go in my room again.
I didn't! She's real. She's my bitch of a sister.
That never go in my room again thing was a flashback.
Yes, that was so. They just kicks him right in the balls.
Yeah.
Like I think he did go in her room at some point. I
think so.
Well, so I never had an older sister. Does this older sister stuff get you any?
Oh
love?
yeah, I hate my sister. She was really mean to me and like hit me a lot and stuff.
Never kicked you in the balls like that though.
No, never. But yeah, the Morty and Summer thing really gets to me. Not like in a sad way, but just like, man, that's what it's like having a mean older sister.
I'm kind of glad I didn't have to experience that. The sister. I also love Summer's line of just like, why am I always your go-to? Because this is the third time he's been like, Summer, you're fake. It's just like, God damn.
I'm glad she didn't turn into like a Meg of the show or whatever. They really gave her stuff to do and her own attitude.
They let her be right. They let her win sometimes. I think, actually, you know what? I had it down here. One of my least favorite lines they ever said to Summer, which I think really was a bad sign for the writers, was in the second interdimensional cable, where Summer says that she shits on some of the jokes. She's like, boy, a lot of these jokes, a lot of this interdimensional cable depends on like violent imagery. And then Morty screams at her, maybe people that create things aren't concerned with your delicate sensibilities.
Oh yeah,
I
wasn't a fan of that
line.
joke. Yeah,
the only thing that got that line back in my good graces was that right afterwards, after Morty screams at Summer for daring to not like a joke and defending like, well, maybe people who make things don't have to care about your snowflake feelings. Then Rick says to Morty, Oh, so that girl turned you down, huh?
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it. Like, that's the real truth there.
I think people ignore that side of the joke when they want to embrace the whole snowflake thing.
That's the problem with the bad fans of Rick and Morty is that they're dumb people who ignore lines that get in the way. I love to dig deep into the characters of shows, but if you don't want to look at every line in a show for intentionality of writers, then you're just building up the worst characters as the best people on it.
So they're all trying to conjure up the worst memories they have of each other, and the one of Beth is one of the darkest things on Rick and Morty.
I love it.
Yeah. So Summer walks in. She needs a ride to a dance or something like that.
To school.
To school.
She needs to
Okay.
go to school.
I couldn't tell. So it is the morning.
Yeah, it's the morning
and
for
Beth
picture day.
is holding a bottle of wine in bed and accidentally hits her in the eye with it.
That she's just so distracted and confused, and then and it's not an intentional hit of her. She's just wobbling about because she's drunk in the morning. And God, the way when she says it's picture day, like that's the extra salt in the wound there.
And it ends with her saying, "I want the police to take me." So I they go there. They go there.
Yeah. No, Beth's barely hidden alcoholism is a very interesting part of her character.
Yeah.
That,
I
like that Jerry's a giant loser, and it's easy to make fun of Jerry. But it wouldn't be fair if the show was like, oh, Beth is perfect and Jerry sucks. No, Beth sucks too. She's just more of a go-getter and a personality and can get things done, while Jerry is just this sad loser who's afraid to live.
God, I hope they write themselves out of this hole, but I really don't like what they did with Beth in season 3, where it was like,
either, yeah.
oh, Beth is Morty's child, so she is even more evil than him.
Yep, yeah. She's just as evil as Rick and like murders. She killed children, like she killed other children. She's a giant sociopath. I really didn't like that reveal on her. I liked it more that Beth was just this. Actually, my favorite Beth reveal was in the Pickle Rick episode. That Beth took her kids to therapy. And it was this very like real thing of she expects the therapist to say, see, you kids suck and I'm right. And instead the therapist's like, can we get into your problems? And Beth gets very defensive. Then like, no, this isn't, you weren't supposed to investigate my problems. And I do like their daddy-daughter bonding at the end of the episode where her and Rick agree that therapist was full of shit and they're never going back again because they don't want to deal with what the real problem she exposed.
That was a better way of showing that Beth had things in common with her father, not that she was, just as dismissive of human life.
And again, for the hardcore fans, that's the shit nobody remembers from the Pickle Rick episode.
Yeah.
Pickle Rick represents him using his genius to ignore the real problems in his life. Like, that's what it's about.
Yeah, it's like it was a distraction, just as it's a distraction in the episode from a serious emotional issue. Just like have a fun pickle run around and kill things.
I mean, sure, it's fun to watch a pickle kill things, but yeah.
But what if you said I'm Pickle Rick and you wore a costume and you put that on all your clothing and
you bought Pickle Rick pickles and ate them? Wouldn't that be crazy?
So we're still determining who is real and who is not.
This is a real bloodbath.
It really is. Pencilvester gets killed by Morty because Rick doesn't have the heart to do it.
I think Pencilvester is the only living thing Rick has ever truly loved. I think.
One thing I wanted to point out is like these parasites don't understand humanity, and that in order to implant these memories, they have to be like, okay, I am fake, but I'm also your friend. You don't know that I'm fake, but we're really good friends and we go back a while. But with every one of these characters, they go back their entire lives. Like, I've known you forever. You're my closest friend. You saved my life in Vietnam. Like, it's a little too much. It's a little
they
too...
overdo it.
Yeah.
They dig too deep in your memories. Like
Sleepy Gary is Jerry's lover and the father of his children.
And the first one they do is Jerry's brother, who's known him his whole life.
Yeah. Like, they try way too hard.
They needed because they want to live and take over the planet. And God, it's just so being able to replace your memory is like the idea that a replaced memory would feel as real as anything else. It's a terrifying thought too.
And Summer realizes that Morty is real because she flashes back to him masturbating in the kitchen.
That felt very real. The announcement, like, well, I have to do it in every room. That was It was a teen. Look, teen boys have absolutely no control.
You don't understand your impulses.
Absolutely not.
And he's being very matter of fact. Like, I do it everywhere. Stop shaming me.
Stop shaming me. And then they're saying, like, you're not the victim here. I was thinking of her friend Grace. Oh God, no, man, kids. we also, how can you control it when internet porn exists? Like, goddamn.
I'm going to say, if you're a teenage boy and you know everyone has left the house, your brain starts working up some ideas.
Oh, yes. Yeah. That's the devil. The devil takes over your hand.
It really does. But it's here where Mr. B and Sleepy Gary bite the dust.
Ah, Master Rick. Remember when you weren't going to shoot me?
I guess I did the butler. Ha ha! Does that scan?
Oh, I get it. It's a play on The Butler Did It.
Thanks, Ghost in a Jar. You always were good at pointing out potentially obscure comedy.
You gotta hide me, Sleepy Gary.
Don't worry. I have a plan. If we can get to my boat, there's a...
No. Just send me to Gary. I want to be with Gary.
Sleepy Gary dies. And this is when Beth has her bad memory of Jerry not saving her from a crazy homeless person.
Yeah, it's you wonder
I heard you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, I wonder how we would all act in this situation. I mean, it's a real test of like a crazy homeless person is confronting you and a loved one. What do you do? What if you run away faster than your loved one? Or do you try to get in a fight with a homeless person to protect them?
I mean, we live in an area with a lot of homeless people, and like 99.9% of the time, they're just, hanging out, not doing anything, not causing any problems. But occasionally someone will be getting violent or having some problems. And usually you can see that a long way away and you can find a way around it. But I've never been surprised by that, really.
I actually did have this happen 2 days ago.
2 days ago?
Yeah.
Before you saw this episode again?
Yes.
Okay.
So this was Christmas Eve.
And for some reason around here, because I think everyone leaves, I swear more troubled people like come out of the woodwork. Like I see a lot more people having some real problems.
Yeah, during the Christmas season, I really think so.
Yeah.
It's sad, and I also homeless people have it really hard. I don't want to be like this is not the South Park episode where they're treated like the living dead.
Yeah.
But so it's Christmas Eve. I'm used to just walking by homeless people. I'm just not paying attention to them. I'm crossing 2 blocks from my place on the main street here, and there's another homeless person talking to me. Like we're both walking in the same direction, and it's just, he's walking in the one way, I'm walking the other. We are going to meet, and I take a step to the side to give him space, and he also has a giant guitar case on his back.
Oh, I think I've seen this guy.
You don't want to talk to this guy.
Okay.
So
noted.
He sees me sidestep, and then he says, no, and then steps to where I sidestep.
Oh my God.
And we're getting closer, and I just say like, hey, sorry, I've had earphones in, I'm not taking those out. I say like, sorry, man. He's like, no. And he's like then walking backwards to stay in my face, and I'm trying to walk around him, and then he puts his arm on my shoulder and shoves me a little bit, and I just say, sorry, man, and I just keep walking. Fortunately, that actually was kind of a mistake by me because I'm like, well, time to just turn my back to this guy. But nothing happened. And he just stayed there screaming. And as I walked around, when I walked back, I then was on the other side of the street. And he was just there. Like he was on that corner looking to be angry at people. I don't think even trying to start a fight. He just wanted to scream at people. But
I think a lot of times it's just to get recognized because you're not acknowledged ever.
Oh, yeah. No,
but if you could be violent or try to mess with somebody, they will acknowledge you.
Especially on the holidays, too. It's probably an even more raw time for those folks for sure. And I feel really bad for him. Fortunately, it was not like in this episode. He did not have a broken bottle and wasn't trying to stab me as was happening to Beth
It's
here.
a moment of real horror there.
As he's like, you say you're not supposed to do that. Just run. He's telling, in Jerry's mind, he thinks he's helping her. He's like, no, I got safe. Now it's time for you to run away.
It's your turn to get safe now.
Yeah, exactly.
I do like that little exchange, Jerry thinking he's still a parasite, and then Beth saying, yeah, but you're real.
I'm a parasite, yeah, but you're real.
He's still a parasite, but he's also a real person.
And that he's never loved anyone more than Sleepy Gary.
They both need time to forget about Sleepy Gary.
And then he'd rather die. He's like, send me to Gary. I want to be with him. I meant to say, too, one of my favorite drawings in the whole episode, the death of Ghost in a Jar.
Oh, yeah.
Because he shoots him and then he transforms
He grows.
and also crawls as he's dying.
There's some cool animation.
It's really good, yeah. And another very writerly line of like, does that scan? Oh, I got it.
Yeah.
Thanks, you're really good at understanding obscure comedy.
And then he shoots him.
Just
Yeah,
shoots
it's those brief moments of Rick being weirdly a comedy nerd where it's like
Yes.
stepping out of the character. It's like the writer questioning themselves. Like, does anyone get this?
Did that joke work? Like, should we pitch it again? Like, I love that extra layer of it. It's a funny line by itself, but to then have a character think out loud, was that a funny thing I said? Like, it makes it feel more like a person is spontaneously saying things instead of reading from a script.
Yeah, yeah. So all of the parasites are killed, and Rick reminds everyone to wash their hands after getting back from outer space. Very important.
Yes.
But
It's not his fault. It's everybody else.
there could possibly be one parasite left. Maybe, maybe not. Beth is going to find out.
Ooh-wee, amen to that. Now this little poopy pants is hungry. Will somebody pass me a pork chop? Is something wrong, Beth? Oh my God! Oh fuck! Oh,
Wait, but
Oh, Beth, why?
I need an ambulance. There's been a shooting. My wife shot. My wife shot a longtime family friend.
God.
Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, Mr. Poopy Butthole.
Keep breathing. Look at me. What's happening? Look at me. Don't fall asleep. Is this what bleeding to death is? Oh, is this how I die?
Oh, jeez. Oh, my God.
It's really funny. So Mr. Poopy Butthole is real. But it's really funny how all the aliens get these cool like sci-fi laser deaths and they die instantly.
Mm-hmm.
But Mr. Poopy Butthole is acting like a real person who's been shot. It's like, is this how I die?
Is this am I butthole wee? It's getting cold. Like they are just the immediate things that would happen in a real life thing. If your mom shot your best friend, you'd be like, we have to call 911 immediately.
Yeah,
You
just
have
trying to figure out what to do. Like, don't fall asleep.
Don't fall asleep. Just stay with us. And just his blood everywhere. Even Rick cares. Like
Yeah.
Rick is upset as anybody. And also the very real thing that like Beth needs to. She's so fucking destroyed by what she just did. She runs straight to her wine to get any comfort.
And I've seen that gif on the internet a lot of Beth like shakily pouring wine. It's a good little bit of animation with the tools that they have
Yeah,
for
and-
doing that.
God, and just his little line right before he gets shot, like this little poopy pants is hungry. Which is like, no, your name's, it sounds like Roiland even forgot what his name was. His name's not Poopy Pants, it's Poopy Butthole.
I think I wrote Poopy Pants a few times in these notes just because of the mix-ups.
It sounds like Poopy Pants is his nickname, man.
Yeah.
And it's so fucking funny that he's right there. You think it's going to be the twist that he is finally revealed to be the parasite, and then when he's real, it's like, oh my God, they hit it so hard and so real.
Apparently the real world has to deal with this Mr. Poopy Butthole character who's not a human.
Yes. Somehow he walks around and everyone accepts him as a real person, which is like, no, he's a guy with a giant, like, cylindrical yellow head, and he's 4 feet tall and has a ridiculous top hat. He's so silly, Mr. Poopy Butthole is.
And they even let him in the hospital.
He's looking a lot better.
Listen, Beth, don't torture yourself. I made a similar mistake years ago, but, on a planetary scale.
Is he mad at me?
He's not pressing charges. I mean, that's gotta be the you shot me equivalent of not being mad.
Can he have visitors?
He'd like to be alone. He told me to tell you he's sorry you didn't have bad memories of him. If you love him, you should leave.
And that's the way the news goes.
And that's his catchphrase, everybody.
Oh, goddamn.
You see him like painfully doing rehab through the window.
It's his slow road to recovery. Well, and also the show has so many great post-credit scenes. Like in general, they built a great just pattern to every show with the post-credit scenes that Mr. Poopy Butthole has starred in a couple times. And this one though too is like he's just been destroyed. Like the Mr. Poopy Butthole isn't pressing charges because I guess he understands or he's so forgiving, but just his statement of like, I'm sorry you didn't have any bad memories of me. It said he was actually the greatest person they knew. He never did anything bad to him.
He was pure like Zoidberg.
Oh, God. And just, God, every fucking line by Mr. Poopy Butthole. It was so great to return to this episode because so many of the shitty fans during season 3, and that also includes assholes like Kanye West and Elon Musk.
Ooh.
Those fans turn me off to Rick and Morty so much, and it often makes me think like, if this appealed to them, then what does it say about me if it appeals to me too? But there's always bad fans of stuff. out there.
Yeah.
I don't want to punish a funny show by good people who do amazing work, like not just the writers and the voice actors, the animators too. We didn't even talk about a friend of a show. Brian Newton is one of their top directors on the show too. These are really great folks working on this that I think get overshadowed by Justin Roiland's just powerful presence.
Yeah.
It's easy to think, especially when so much of it feels like Justin Roiland just riffing out loud, that it makes you think like, oh, this is all Justin Roiland. It's bigger than him.
Yeah, I feel kind of bad that because of the fandom, I'm not very vocal about like the fact that I like this show.
Mhm.
And I don't like it as much as I used to because of the fandom and because season 3 made some choices I don't like. But I still really enjoyed returning to this episode, and I now would just want to rewatch it again, just like with everything we do on this show.
Yeah, all the episodes on Hulu, just replay them over and over, like 100 times, 100 years.
100 years of rewatching Rick and Morty.
Yeah, I would love to return to it again too. I'm really curious to see where they go with their 70 more episodes, over how long that takes. But I mean, I know why they did it, because there's a reason there have been 30 episodes in 5 years of the show. It's because it takes a long fucking time to make it. And they spend like 4 months in break just to decide how they're going to license more episodes and how Adult Swim's going to pay them.
Yeah, I was looking at the air dates of episodes, and I forgot like when things aired. I think they normally take like 18 months off between, not off, but it takes 18 months between seasons. So I believe Ryan Ridley said on Twitter or in an interview that the earliest season 4 could start would be late 2019. So maybe August of 2019 or fall of 2019. Ooh-wee. What's going to happen?
Well, that's that. You know, in the season 3 finale, or the second to last episode, there's a scene where they think about doing a Minecraft episode, and then they change their mind out loud, and then Summer says out loud, "Boy, this is why it takes you so long to make this thing." Like they get very direct in why. I mean, it is a Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland are busy mercurial men, and it takes time to make things.
And Harmon is a perfectionist.
Oh yeah, yep. Which if you're already a perfectionist in live action, and then you have animation that you can tinker with over and over and over and over again until it's all perfect, I can see why that would take 16 extra months.
Dan gets to work for 9 months on one episode of something. That's amazing. That's perfect for him. But yeah, like I said, it's on Hulu, as Henry said, sorry. And the Blu-rays are pretty good. They're commentaries, some
Tons
with
of commentaries.
people like Al Jean on them.
That's another thing I really love about Rick and Morty. That's another thing that really makes me feel in common with Justin Roiland, is like his Rick and Morty the Rick and Morty Blu-rays have the same standard of quality as Simpsons DVDs. I think they're made by people who knew that the Simpsons DVDs were top of their class, and we need to do commentary on every episode, at least one. We need tons of deleted scenes. We need to make original content for this. We need to make original art. We need to make a chick track style pamphlet about how to not be an evil Morty.
I got one of those.
Yeah, see, we bought the first run of those.
Of the first season on Blu-ray?
Yep. We're real fans.
We're true fans,
folks.
not like you people listening. I'm kidding, of course.
But the Blu-rays are great. They really are. It's such a weird one where it seems like in between doing regular commentaries for The Simpsons, they then put on an episode of Rick and Morty and they do commentary. This Al Jean, Matt Groening, Tom Gamble, Max Pross, Matt Selman, I think others, they just do a commentary full on a Rick and Morty episode. And on it is where Al Jean offers Justin Roiland a chance to do a couch gag. Like he says, "Hey, Justin, when you listen to this, would you like to do a couch gag?"
That's a pretty good couch gag, too. As much as I don't like those viral couch gags they do on The Simpsons now that are all like 3 minutes long and just a very
They're meant to be
labored
shared.
idea.
Like,
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
what
it's a
they
good idea in terms of like promoting your show, but man, you're shaving time off an episode that's not very long to begin with.
Well, hey, it's either that or they watch Itchy and Scratchy and TV shows.
That's
for a
true.
while.
Why write new jokes?
Exactly.
But I have to say that, yeah, the commentators are great. Some of them are like mini Grandma's Virginity podcast episodes in which Justin Roiland is drunk and out of control.
Oh, yeah.
And just rapping and annoying everybody. And those can be fun, too.
Yeah. Part of Justin Roiland is a guy who likes to annoy people by being silly, and that's fun.
He made a whole entire show about it.
Yep, yeah.
And we just talked about it. So, yeah, check out Rick and Morty wherever better shows are sold.
And one more time, I want to thank one of our top patrons, Justin Allen, for suggesting we do this episode of Rick and Morty. This was his pick. I think it would have been our pick anyway, but
yeah.
I'm so happy we got to do it. So thank you very much, Justin Allen, for all of your support on Patreon.
And as for us, this has been What a Cartoon. Our show is supported by the Talking Simpsons Network, and that's just me and Henry. Hello.
Hi.
And if you want to help support the show, and if you want lots of bonus episodes of podcasts on top of that and other incentives, go to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons and join the Talking Simpsons Network. At the $5 level, you can get every episode of this podcast and Talking Simpsons a week at a time and ad-free, and lots of bonus podcasts like exclusive miniseries like Talking Critic and Talking Futurama. Whatever we do in 2019, which will be coming up very, very soon after this podcast. You'll be able to vote on it if you're a patron. So that's at least 13 new episodes of a podcast series you can only get if you're on the Patreon. Also, we have tons of interviews, monthly community podcasts, season wrap-ups, and deleted scene specials for Talking Simpsons, and so much more. And Henry, we have a newer $10 tier with another bonus podcast on it, right?
That is correct. If you bump yourself up to the $10 a month tier, you get access to our exclusive and very good What a Cartoon movie podcast, where me and Bob each month do a different animated series that's voted on by our patrons. The first one in November was Batman Mask of the Phantasm. December had the Studio Ghibli classic Kiki's Delivery Service. What will January hold? You'll find out soon, and you can check out the Kiki's Delivery Service and Mask of the Phantasm ones right now if you sign up at the $10 level or up your old pledge to $10. It's a really, really great show. I'm really proud of what we've done on the first two, and I can't wait for more. It's fun to talk about animated series on this show, but it's also awesome to finally expand into animated films for the What a Cartoon movie podcast. So please check it out, patreon.com/Talking Simpsons, and subscribe now.
So I've been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo. My other podcast is Retronauts. Go to retronauts.com or look for Retronauts in your podcast machine. It's every Monday and occasionally Friday. We bring you a classic gaming podcast. It's going on for a long time, so please check it out and subscribe. Henry, how about you?
I'm Henry Gilbert, and you can follow me on Twitter at HENEREYG. That's where I share all my thoughts on animation, my thoughts whenever new episodes go live, or when we're doing a live show like the one we're doing on January 16th for Talking Simpsons in San Francisco, California. Look that up at sfsketchfest.com. You can learn about all of that and so many more things. Easiest if you follow me on Twitter, HENEREYG.
Thanks so much for listening to What a Cartoon, folks. We'll see you next week with the regular show episode, Brilliant Century Duck Crisis Special. We will see you then.
No! Shoot! Now look, it's like a Where's Waldo page. Can you find me? Check out all these zany characters. We'll be right back after these messages.